The rental market is incredibly tough right now. Insurance is skyrocketing. Groceries cost more, utilities hit harder, and suddenly the state people move to for relief starts feeling like the state they ran from. Across America, some states are not just getting expensive. They are changing the daily lives of ordinary families. In this video, we are looking at 15 states where the cost of living is rising fast, why it is happening, who is getting squeezed the hardest, and what warning signs show a once affordable state may be turning into a financial trap. The 15th state is North Carolina, and this one is controversial because many people still talk about it like it is an easy escape from high-cost America. Compared with the most expensive states, North Carolina can still look reasonable. The recent cost index from the Missouri Economic Research and Information Center placed the state slightly below the national average overall. But that headline hides the real story. The squeeze is not evenly spread. It is concentrated in fast-growing areas where housing demand, healthcare costs, car dependence, and service prices are hitting at the same time. The state has attracted workers, retirees, college graduates, and remote employees who want a better balance between pay and lifestyle. That sounds good until everyone wants the same neighborhoods, the same school districts, the same short commutes, and the same newer apartments. Then the old bargain starts to crack. The easy mistake is thinking a state is affordable just because it used to be affordable. The new pressure comes from speed. If wages do not move as fast as rent, insurance, groceries, and utilities, the state can still feel expensive even while the index says it is not as costly as California or Massachusetts. That is why North Carolina belongs on this list. It is not the most expensive state. It is one of the clearest examples of a state where the word affordable is getting harder to defend in the places people actually want to live. The 14th state is Georgia, and the uncomfortable truth is Georgia's cost problem is not just about prices. It is about distance. Many households move to Georgia expecting lower housing costs, but the bill often comes back through commuting, car repairs, insurance, fuel, toll-like time losses, and the hidden cost of living far from work. The state still ranks below the national average in broad cost indexes, and that is exactly why the pressure surprises people. A family may find a cheaper house outside a major job center, then pay for that house every morning in traffic. Groceries do not care that your mortgage is slightly lower. Daycare does not care that the neighborhood used to be affordable. Utilities do not pause because the state has a reputation for being cheaper than the Northeast. In the recent cost index, Georgia's housing score still looked low compared with many coastal states, but the total household picture is changing. The Atlanta region remains the gravity point. As more people chase jobs, schools, airports, hospitals, and entertainment in the same metro area, the cost of normal life spreads outward. The controversy is simple. A state can advertise affordability while families quietly build a more expensive lifestyle just to access opportunity. The house may be cheaper than New York, but the full life around it may not feel cheap anymore. The 13th state is Texas, and this will irritate people because Texas is still widely marketed as a low-cost, no-state income tax destination. That reputation is only half the story. In the recent cost index, Texas remained below the national average overall, with housing still far below the worst coastal states. But the pressure is rising through channels people do not always calculate before moving. Property taxes can be heavy. Home insurance has become a bigger issue. Electric bills can shock people during extreme heat. Car dependence is not optional in many places. Fast growth creates competition for housing, roads, medical appointments, contractors, and schools. A person moving from a very expensive state may still feel relief, but a longtime Texas worker may feel the ground shifting under their feet. That difference matters. Cost of living is not just a comparison between states. It is a comparison between your paycheck and your local bills. Texas has huge advantages, but it also has huge growth pressure. When millions of people want the same supposedly affordable metro areas, affordability becomes a crowded room. The behind-the-curtain force is land use and infrastructure. If jobs spread faster than housing, transit, water planning, and power capacity, ordinary families pay through congestion, repairs, premiums, deposits, and longer commutes. Texas is not doomed. But the cheap Texas story is no longer simple enough to trust without checking the full bill. The 12th state is Colorado, where the cost of living problem is easy to misunderstand. People do not move to Colorado only for a job. They move for mountains, lifestyle, health, status, scenery, outdoor access, and the idea of a cleaner daily life. That lifestyle premium is powerful. In recent cost index data, Colorado was above the national average overall, and housing was above the national benchmark. That is not just a statistic. It is a signal that people are paying extra for place. The state has become a case study in what happens when natural beauty becomes an economic engine. Demand does not only come from local wages. It comes from savings, remote work, investment income, second homes, and people willing to sacrifice space for location. That puts pressure on teachers, service workers, nurses, young families, and anyone whose income is local while prices are national. A common belief says expensive states are expensive because they are mismanaged. Sometimes policy matters, but Colorado shows another force: desire. When enough people desire the same lifestyle, the market prices that desire into rent, restaurants, childcare, parking, and even basic repairs. Colorado's cost problem is not just that things are expensive. It is that many people are paying for a dream and calling it a budget. The 11th state is Florida, and Florida may be the most argued about state in any cost of living conversation. It has no state income tax. It has warm weather. It has beaches, tourism, retirees, jobs, and constant attention. But the everyday math has become harder. Recent cost index data put Florida above the national average overall, with groceries and housing both above the benchmark. That matters because Florida used to be treated as a place where people escaped high costs. Now many households are discovering that no state income tax does not protect you from rent, insurance, home repairs, association fees, medical costs, and storm-related risk. Insurance is the bill that changed the conversation. Even renters feel it indirectly when landlords pass higher ownership costs into rent. The state also has a demand problem that looks like success until you have to pay for it. Retirees compete with workers. Tourists support jobs but also shape prices. Investors can turn housing into an asset first and a home second. Local workers then face a strange economy where the state looks wealthy in visitors and property values, but basic living feels more fragile. Florida is not just getting expensive because people want sunshine. It is getting expensive because sunshine has been monetized into housing, insurance, services, and scarcity. The 10th state is Arizona, and Arizona shows how fast a bargain can disappear when population growth meets heat, water anxiety, and housing demand. In recent cost index data, Arizona was well above the national average overall, and its housing score was far above the benchmark. That is a major warning sign because housing drives so much of the household budget. Arizona was once the place people mentioned when they wanted space, sun, and lower prices than California. But when too many people use one state as the alternative to another expensive state, the alternative starts absorbing the pressure. Phoenix and surrounding areas became magnets for movers, retirees, investors, and workers looking for a different life. Then the cost of land, rent, utilities, and services started behaving less like a discount and more like a premium. The heat also matters. Extreme summer temperatures turn cooling into a survival expense, not a comfort expense. That makes electricity bills part of the affordability story. Water concerns add another layer because long-term growth depends on systems that are not free. Arizona's controversy is that it still sells the image of open space, but the real cost is tied to how many people can afford to live safely and comfortably in that space. The 9th state is Oregon, and Oregon is a quiet giant in this issue. It does not always dominate national arguments the way California or Florida does, but its cost signals are serious. Recent cost index data put Oregon far above the national average overall, with housing, transportation, groceries, and healthcare all above the benchmark. That mix hurts because it does not leave households an easy escape. If rent is high, you hope transportation is low. If transportation is high, you hope groceries are easy. If groceries rise too, the budget starts losing air. Oregon's challenge is partly geography and partly desirability. People want access to the coast, mountains, forests, strong urban culture, and a lifestyle that feels different from the rest of the country. But those qualities do not automatically create enough housing or enough middle-income breathing room. The state also has communities where wages do not match the price of the lifestyle being sold around them. The result is a strange tension. Oregon can look relaxed from the outside while many residents feel financially cornered. The controversy is that the very things that make Oregon attractive can become the same things that make it costly. Nature is free to look at, but living near it is often not free at all. The eighth state is Washington, where the cost of living is rising through the collision of high wages, high housing demand, and expensive daily movement. Recent cost index data placed Washington well above the national average overall, with transportation especially high and housing also above the benchmark. This is important because people often focus only on rent or home prices. In Washington, the larger issue is the full cost of participating in the economy. The strongest job markets pull people toward expensive corridors. Good salaries can push up local prices. Workers with average incomes then compete against households with far more buying power. That is how a state can have prosperity and pressure at the same time. The Seattle area is the most obvious example, but the affordability strain does not stay trapped in one city. It moves outward as people search for cheaper homes and carry demand with them. Longer commutes become the unofficial tax. Higher transportation costs become the penalty for living farther away. Washington shows a hard truth about modern America. A strong economy does not automatically mean an affordable life. Sometimes it means the entry fee rises faster for everyone who is not already inside. The seventh state is Maine, and Maine is one of the clearest examples of a state where the cost story changed in a way many people did not expect. It was long seen as quiet, older, rural, scenic, and more affordable than the major coastal power centers. But recent cost index data placed Maine well above the national average overall, with housing and utilities both notably high. That should make viewers pause. Maine is not just expensive because it is trendy. It is expensive because limited housing supply, seasonal demand, older homes, heating costs, remote geography, and outside interest all collide. A place can feel small and still be financially intense. In some communities, the local wage base does not match the price that outsiders, retirees, or second home buyers can pay. That creates a split reality. One person sees charm, another sees displacement. One person sees a peaceful relocation. Another sees rent that no longer matches local work. Utilities also matter because cold climates punish weak budgets. Heating, insulation, maintenance, and transportation across longer distances turn into real costs. Maine's warning is that rural beauty does not guarantee rural affordability. Sometimes scarcity in a small market hurts more because there are fewer substitutes. The sixth state is Maryland, where the cost of living is pushed up by location, income, taxes, housing, and proximity to powerful job markets. Recent cost index data placed Maryland clearly above the national average overall, with housing far above the benchmark. The state sits near federal work, defense contracting, major hospitals, universities, ports, and high-income suburbs. That creates a thick layer of demand. The controversial part is that Maryland can look like a compromise state, especially for people comparing it with Washington, D.C. or parts of the Northeast. But compromise does not mean cheap. Many households pay for access to jobs, schools, networks, transit corridors, and professional opportunity. The closer you get to those advantages, the less forgiving the budget becomes. Even when a family moves farther out to save on housing, commuting can take back the savings through fuel, time, wear on the car, and stress. Maryland's cost pressure is also psychological. People may earn more, but they often need more just to remain stable. That is why high-income states can still produce financially anxious households. The bill is not only what you pay, it is what you must pay to stay connected to opportunity. The fifth state is New Jersey, and New Jersey's cost problem is almost impossible to separate from its location. Recent federal price data placed New Jersey among the highest state price levels in the nation, and recent cost index data showed housing far above the national benchmark. The state is tied to the New York and Philadelphia economies, which gives residents access to major labor markets. But access has a price. Housing, property taxes, commuting, tolls, insurance, childcare, and everyday services can make even a strong paycheck feel ordinary. New Jersey is controversial because many people defend its costs by pointing to good schools, high incomes, and proximity to jobs. That argument has truth in it. But it also hides a painful question. How much should a family have to earn just to live near the opportunities that built the state's value? The problem is not that New Jersey has no benefits. The problem is that the benefits are expensive to reach. A household can be surrounded by opportunity and still feel squeezed if every layer of life has a premium attached. New Jersey proves that location is not just geography, it is a monthly bill. The fourth state is New York, and the story is bigger than New York City. Recent cost index data placed New York far above the national average overall, with housing dramatically above the benchmark. That housing number captures the real pressure better than any debate about culture or politics. New York has one of the deepest job markets in America, but it also has some of the steepest entry costs. Rent, deposits, transit trade-offs, taxes, utilities, food away from home, and service prices all shape the daily experience. The state also has a split personality. Some areas are global wealth centers. Some are struggling post-industrial communities. Some are rural and aging. Yet cost pressure moves through the whole state in different ways. In the city, it may be rent. In suburbs, it may be property taxes and commuting. In colder regions, it may be heating and maintenance. The controversy is that people often say, just leave. But leaving can mean walking away from family, networks, jobs, medical care, and identity. New York is expensive not only because prices are high, but because the state holds opportunities and attachments that people are afraid to lose. That is how a place can become both unaffordable and hard to abandon. The third state is Massachusetts, and Massachusetts may be one of the strongest examples of high opportunity becoming high pressure. Recent cost index data placed it near the very top of the country overall, with housing more than double the national benchmark in that index. Utilities and healthcare were also far above average. That is a crushing mix, even in a state with strong wages and elite institutions. The key point is that Massachusetts is not expensive by accident. It concentrates education, medicine, research, technology, finance, and historic communities in a relatively tight space. Those strengths attract money, talent, and demand. But they also make it brutally hard for ordinary workers, students, young families, and retirees who are not sitting on large assets. The state shows the dark side of excellence. When a place becomes known for great schools, great hospitals, and strong jobs, people compete to get near those advantages. Then housing becomes the gatekeeper. The controversy is that Massachusetts can be both one of the most successful states and one of the hardest places to build a simple life. Success does not cancel the squeeze. Sometimes success is what raises the price of entry. The second state is Hawaii, and Hawaii is in a category of its own. Recent cost index data placed Hawaii as the most expensive state overall, with housing, utilities, groceries, and transportation all far above the national benchmark. Federal price data also placed Hawaii among the highest price-level states. The reason is not mysterious. Hawaii is geographically isolated, land is limited, shipping matters, energy is expensive, housing supply is constrained, and global demand treats the islands as both home and prize. That creates a moral tension. For visitors, Hawaii is paradise. For many residents, paradise comes with grocery bills, rent pressure, multi-generational housing stress, and the fear that local people can be priced out of their own communities. The most important point is that Hawaii's cost of living is not just a lifestyle issue. It is a survival and belonging issue. When prices rise on the mainland, people complain. When prices rise on islands with limited land and import dependence, options shrink faster. Hawaii forces a hard question. What happens when the market value of a place becomes too high for the people who give that place its culture, labor, and life? The first state is California, and putting California at the top will surprise nobody, but the reason still matters. Recent federal price data placed California at the highest state regional price parity, and federal data also showed California with the highest housing rent price level among states. Recent cost index data told the same broad story. California was far above the national average overall, with housing, utilities, and transportation all extremely high. But the real issue is not just that California is expensive. The issue is that California exports its cost pressure. When people leave California for Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Idaho, Oregon, or other states, they often carry higher purchasing power into cheaper markets. That can help them personally while making the destination harder for locals. Inside California, the pressure is layered. Housing supply has lagged demand in many job-rich areas. Climate risk affects insurance and utilities. Long commutes punish workers. Service costs rise because workers also need housing. The state has enormous wealth, but wealth does not equal affordability. California is the clearest example of a place where innovation, beauty, climate, jobs, and culture all attract demand so powerful that ordinary living becomes a luxury product. So here is the recap. North Carolina and Georgia show how fast-growth states can lose their affordability image. Texas shows that no state income tax does not erase property taxes, insurance, utilities, and commuting. Colorado, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, and Maine show how lifestyle demand and limited supply can turn beauty into a bill. Florida shows how insurance and housing can rewrite the meaning of sunshine. Maryland, New Jersey, and New York show how access to opportunity becomes expensive. Massachusetts shows how excellence can raise the entry fee. Hawaii shows what happens when geography, land limits, and imports collide. California shows the full picture: high demand, high housing, high transportation, high utilities, and a cost pressure strong enough to spread beyond its borders. The real question is not which state is bad. The real question is whether ordinary work can still buy ordinary stability where people live. That is the line every family is watching. Once that line breaks, a place can look successful on paper while feeling impossible at home. If this video made you look at affordability differently, hit like so more people see it. Comment with the one state you think is becoming too expensive the fastest, and say whether you would stay, move, or refuse to move there in the first place. Share this with someone who keeps saying a state is cheap just because it used to be cheap. Because in today's economy, the old price tag may already be gone.